In the last 10 years, I've started six businesses that have collectively gone on to do over $6 million in revenue. So I've had a lot of successes, but I've also had a lot of failures, including four big failures where I essentially lost everything. The first big one, I ended up becoming homeless for about 2 years. And the more recent one, I went from having a net worth of almost half a million to $70,000 in debt over the course of about 6 months. And I've never, with the exception of a couple Instagram posts, I haven't talked about it publicly until now. So I'm excited to start this little series going over my entrepreneurial journey where we're going to talk about everything, all the successes, all the failures, all the lessons that I've learned along the way. So I'm hoping that you learned something, and I'm hoping you find it inspirational. So let's go back to when I was 19. I had big dreams, and I had a lot of them. I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be a skydiver. I wanted to be a tank driver, and I wanted to be a business owner. And the one that was most important to me at the time was being a business owner. And I wanted it to be, with one of my passions. But having a business in tank driving that just doesn't exist. Starting a business in skydiving requires millions of dollars of capital. So, definitely couldn't afford that. And I decided to start a DJ business. So my plan was I was going to become a wedding DJ. I'm going to make $300 per day. Then I'm going to become wealthy. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do right here. But at the time, the idea of making $300 per day was like an unfathomable amount of money. So I knew if I could just if I could figure out a way to make $300 per day, even twice a week, I would have more money than I could spend. Realistically, not. But that was the goal at the time. And the issue was I was working as a parachute packer at Vegas Extreme Skydiving, and I was making, depending on how many parachutes I would pack in a day, between $40 and $80. And to get the equipment to start the wedding DJ company, I would need about $15,000. And trying to save up $15,000 when you're making $40 to $80 a day, it's not going to happen. So it always kind of seemed like a pipe dream that maybe one day in the future I'll be able to achieve until I met Nesta. So Nesta ended up becoming my business mentor and eventually my business partner. Probably one of the most inspirational guys that I've ever met in my life. And especially at the time, probably the single most inspirational person. Little background on him. He was born near Nairobi in Kenya, in a really small village where, they would shower in the river. He moved to the US when he was 17 with nothing. And within a year, he was able to become a full-time professional DJ and a pilot. After that, he moved to Atlanta and started a nightclub, which he then got fully automated and started getting passive income from. Then he moved to Vegas, became a DJ at all the biggest nightclubs, started a company called VersaBright, renting LED panels, selling LED panels to nightclubs. Then from having his own LED panels, he started Final Source Production Group, where he would rent out LED panels, speakers, lasers, staging, and things like that to temporary events like raves and corporate events. And getting to know him and getting to know his business and eventually, becoming an employee of Final Source, it made me realize that, once I have this gear, there's more opportunities for revenue than just being a wedding DJ. I could also rent out the equipment. And knowing that, and also knowing someone who was already successful in doing it, it gave me a lot of confidence in saying like, okay, I think I'm going to pull the trigger. But there was a lot of risks, right? Buy $15,000 of equipment when you're making, $50 a day, it was a big decision. So I think one of the things that I did really well with this business was I did a really good job calculating what my risks were and hedging against them. So I would say there was three big risks. Number one is that I buy the equipment and it depreciates, right? Because I have the equipment, but I also have an asset. And at any point, if I want to end the business, I could sell the asset. But the asset depreciates. If I buy it for $15,000, right as I leave Guitar Center, it's not new anymore; it's used, and it'll probably be worth, let's say 10 to 12,000. So the big risk is that I need to be able to get enough revenue to cover the depreciation. And that was a risk that, is just part of the business. There was no real way to hedge against that. Number two is that I would buy the equipment and that it would either get damaged or stolen. I think this is the risk that was most likely. So for damaged, I got the extended warranties from Guitar Center. Turns out those don't really do anything. But then for stolen, I got some insurances to cover that. Then number three, the risk would be that I don't get clients. So definitely the smartest thing that I did with this business was I secured clients before I actually bought the equipment. So from being a DJ, I already knew some of the owners of the rave companies in Vegas. And I started talking to them and I told them, hey, I've got this idea where I'm going to start buying CDJs and some speakers. Here's my prices. If I do this, would you be willing to rent from me? And I got three people to agree. Black Sheep Rave, GT Projects, and Endless Journey. And after that, I was like, okay, my risks are hedged. I'm going to pull the trigger. So I was somehow able to convince my mom to let me use one of her credit cards to spend $15,000 in a single day. I was trying to find the bank statements, but it was a while ago. I can't find the exact amount. Just from memory, I think it was somewhere between 15 to 17,000. But let's go with 15. So in February of 2017, I pulled the trigger and I bought all of the equipment. And the prices that I had, $200 per night if you just want to rent the DJ equipment. If you want to get the DJ equipment and the speakers, it was $450 per night. Then if you want to get the DJ equipment, the speaker rental, and also hire me as the DJ, which was more for like weddings and proms and stuff, I don't remember what my price was. I tried checking my journals and I can't remember. I think one of them was 900 or 1,000, but that's just a guess. But I do remember these two numbers. So I ran the business for 4 months. And in those 4 months, I was able to have a pretty good amount of success. So I got one client where I DJ'd at their wedding. That was a disaster. I got another client where I DJ'd at a high school's prom. That was also a disaster. And then I had a recurring client where I think it was either once a week, once a month, once bi-weekly. I don't fully remember. I would go and do a DJ session at a kickboxing gym for one of their special events. And that was solid. I think that was like $100 or $200 per gig. And then in total, I ended up doing between 10 to 15 equipment rentals for some of the local rave companies. And in total, I'm going to guess that I did about $5,000 in revenue. I think the lowest that it would be would probably be 4,000, and then on the higher end, I think it might have been as high as 8,000. But my guess, and I try to look for records. I have no records going that far back, and the bank statements are already expired. I'm gonna take a guess. I think I did around 5,000 in revenue. But the problem was the equipment rentals that I was doing was the same businesses that Nesta was renting equipment to. So, On the good side, I did so well that I basically got all of the possible clients that I could have. The problem is that Nesta had the same clients, and we were in the same industry, and we were selling the same services. Um, and it got to a point where I started accidentally taking his clients. I had a cheaper price than he did because I didn't have as big of a business. So I started stepping on his toes, and doing that to your business mentor, definitely a dick move. He talked to me about it, and I was like, okay, you're right. These are your clients. I can't steal them. Um, and he was running Final Source full time, and at the time, he wanted to go open up a bar in Dallas. Final Source was pretty busy, so he looked at me, and at the time I was 20, and he saw someone who understood how to grow a business, in this industry. I did well enough to where, I was basically getting all the clients that he was, and he had an idea. So he was like, okay, you know, I have this business, and, he wanted this one to be passive the way his nightclub in Atlanta was, where he just plugs someone in and runs it while he goes and starts the business in Dallas. So he had the idea, hey, this kid, this 20-year-old kid, me, he knows how to run a business. Why don't I just make him the CEO of my business and I go start the bar in Dallas? Um, so we talked about it, and I decided I wanted to do it. So after 4 months of starting my business, he ended up hiring me to be the CEO of his business. So that's how my first business went. Altogether, I would say it was a success. It lasted about 4 months, but it took me into becoming the CEO of a far bigger company, which really improved my confidence as an entrepreneur. And if you want to know how that went, that would be episode 2. You can click the link right here, or I'll leave it as the first link in the bio. But besides that, my name is Braden Sky. Thanks for watching.